And at 10, special features. The puppet is a character I'm sure all of us love, and while a load of fans like to turn this character into something sinister and terrifying, see the top 10 FNAF fan alternate versions of the puppet for more on that, why is it so special? According to Ultimate Custom Night Deathlines, Chica was the first of the victims, meaning that she would have to be the special one, right? At least the first of the missing children. But why is it that the puppet is the one that's able to give gifts and give life in the FNAF 2 minigame? It awakens the animatronics, so what's the deal? Is it more emotion magic, since agony is the emotion that causes possession? Is it perhaps love that can bring those things to life? We know that Henry loved his daughter, trying so hard to set her free in FNAF 3 and 6, but he also tried to keep her safe above anyone else, as we see in the security puppet minigame, giving Charlotte a special green bracelet that the puppet used to track her. That's the only explanation I can think of that makes sense. Maybe the puppet can feel the overwhelming love from her family, and that's how she's able to do it. I don't know. And at 9, human counterpart? This point is brought to you by YouTube users Ruby Pupstar and Henry, who commented on the last Tiny Details video. The circus baby animatronic is a complex robot, with the spirit of Elizabeth inside and sinister goals and intentions. But she's different to her Fazbear Frike's book counterpart, but also similar in a lot of ways. One of those reasons being the pin-like mechanisms that cover her body. In the books, she uses these pins to switch between her animatronic form and a realistic human form. These pins are also visible on the game version of the character as well, and since they're never really used for anything in game, we can safely assume that they're intended for a different purpose. Well, like the same purpose as the book, but a different purpose. You get it. But why does this matter? Well, this brings up the question, who is her human counterpart? Have we been seeing her? Do we know what she looks like in human form, if she has one yet? Or is it just a design detail that shows us that she can change between looking like her and us, since she, as a part of Ennard, takes over our bodies at the end of Sister Location? Does she have to do this before she unlocks this power, or is it always there? Will we see her in Security Breach? If I know. Anything can happen at this point. And at 8, Bad Press Bonnie. This was pointed out by multiple users in the comments from the last part, but the first one I saw was from user SockGems once again. These users suggested that perhaps the reason we don't see Bonnie in Security Breach is because it would be bad for business, considering how multiple kids were killed by a man wearing a golden Bonnie springlock suit. It's also interesting how blood never triggered the mechanisms in the suit, but that's aside the point. Anyway, with all this attention on the Bonnie animatronic, it's understandable why they would want to keep it quiet, and only give the character a bowling alley. But if this was the reason why they scrapped the character, why are they still sending Springtrap animatronics in special delivery? Why are they putting out multiple skins for Springtrap? If they know that the killer used a Spring Bonnie or at least a Golden Bonnie suit, why would they risk more bad press, especially when they know these animatronics are malfunctioning? We know these games take place around the same time, since the Afton virus is the thing corrupting the special delivery animatronics, but why would they continue to do that? That's so stupid. Like, I get it. These people are definitely missing a few brain cells, but can't be missing all of them. Come on. And before we move on to number 8, if you're enjoying this series and love that we've been able to cover over 100 FNAF Tiny Details, be sure you're hitting that like button. It really helps us out and lets more people find the video and the channel. And check in the top right corner for the first part of the series, and as well as a new playlist for it. Yeah, this series now deserves a playlist. Jesus. And at 7, Dynamic Duo. There are so many FNAF ships it makes me sick to my stomach. And while that also may be the fact that I've only eaten a Kit Kat today, I didn't think that FNAF ships would go this far. There are 2 animatronics notably missing from the Security Breach roster, Bonnie as previously mentioned, and Foxy, instead being replaced by Roxanne Wolf and Montgomery Gator. But thanks to Instagram user that Colby Flats who DM'd me and a YouTube user in the last part, they pointed out that Roxanne is actually a combination of Foxy and Bonnie, almost as if they had a child together. I know it would be impossible, considering how they're both robots and can't have a biological child, but the design of the character matches them both closely. Wolves aren't that different from foxes, being basically cousins, foxes diverting from the wolf lineage around 12 million years ago, and Roxy plays the guitar, and the guitar was reserved exclusively for Bonnie up until this point, excluding the mediocre melodies. It's weird, and I can't believe that Foxy and Bonnie have a daughter, at least technically speaking, but I shouldn't be surprised at this point. And at 6, Scrabble. The shadow animatronics are some of the most mysterious characters in the game, but we've already talked about them in the last part. Why they were made and why is only Bonnie aggressive, those questions have already been asked. But a new question presented by G5 Studio on the last marathon for this series asked why the hell Shadow Freddy is the only shadow animatronic with a normal name, while Bonnie and Dee Dee have a mix of letters, RWQFSFASXC for Bonnie and XOR for Shadow Dee Dee. But why are their names just letters? My first and only guess is that there's some form of cipher, and that we just need to decode them, but I've had no luck with Visionaire ciphers and anagrams, especially with cipher anagrams, taking what I got from the cipher and trying to unscramble it. And it could also be that Scott just didn't name the animatronics and instead smashed his head on the keyboard from frustration and then just kept it. But Scott doesn't really do things like that, that's more of a me thing. And FNAF 2, where RWQFSFASXC was introduced, started to expand on the lore of the world, so it could be possible that there's something more there. Halfway through into number 5, Lost in Time. This is a bit of a wild idea, but with Afton being in a game, that game being FNAF VR, and now a virus, could he be immortal and timeless? And for those who are confused, let me try to explain. The internet has been around for ages now. Nobody born within the past 30 years has really grown up without the internet having at least some part in their lives. And viruses have also been around for ages. They've gotten a lot more complex and creative, but they've been around for a while. Could William be using this to access any point in time where the internet was still available, like Savitar from The Flash Season 3, who tried to shatter his existence throughout time? Could William have successfully done the same thing? Could he have actually used this virus on all other animatronics in the games, and that's why they attack us? I mean, this isn't really that far-fetched for a universe with possessed robots in agony and a time-traveling ball pit, so I'd buy it. And at 4, Mediocre Melodies. This isn't entirely new news, but we've learnt the origins of the Mediocre Melodies crew. What seemed like random additions in FNAF 6 were actually set up 3 games earlier. FNAF 3's Night 4 Phone Calls has Phone Guy talking about multiple simultaneous springlock failures occurring at the sister location. This isn't the place we visit in that game, but rather another Fazbear joint. He says the company has deemed the suits temporarily unfit for employees, and that the classic suits are being retired to an appropriate location while being looked at by our technicians. Until replacements arrive, you'll be expected to wear the temporary costumes provided to you. Keep in mind that they were found on very short notice, so questions of appropriateness/relevance should be deflected. And while it could have been just about some crappy knockoff Frank Fazbear costumes from AliExpress, the line about questions about relevance should be deflected seems to point that they aren't the normal Fazbear crew. And the only other group we really see are the Mediocre Melodies, hence why they're mediocre. They're not the original. And at 3, Good Ending. The good ending in FNAF 3 is the one we all try and get, as well as the one we believe to be canon. However, there are details that someone pointed out to me, like how Golden Freddy's head isn't there, but is present in the bad ending. I did know this, but had forgotten about it, deeming it inconsequential. But now we at least know why, because despite the Happiest Day minigame, we still didn't release their soul. They didn't want to go. They wanted to stay behind to torture William for as long as they can. We brushed this off at the beginning, but we know that now. And it's interesting though, since FNAF 3 was supposed to be the end of the series. So why, if this is meant to be the end, is the Golden Freddy animatronic not released in the good ending? When these were added, Scott didn't know everyone would hate the Springtrap jump scare, but he made Golden Freddy stay anyway. Why? I guess we'll never find out. And at 2, Crash to Desktop. I told you it would be in the next Tiny Details list. Golden Freddy is the most mysterious animatronic from FNAF 1, being able to move through closed doors while staying limp with no endoskeleton, and can even cause hallucinations like it's me and Eyeless Bonnie, along with changing posters on the wall. I figured they can do this because of other emotions, but why do they crash us to the desktop when they jump scare us? It's a weird moment, especially the first time, but it's certainly going to crash you whenever you get killed by this freaky fiend. But this has bigger implications than we first thought, since now the series is about video games interacting with the real world, and even FNAF World had those elements, having to set up the clues to unlock the good ending in FNAF 3. But this is the first instance of FNAF interacting with reality, and it's our reality, not the in-game reality that we would assume. This also happens with Nightmare in FNAF 4. Is this symbolic of death? Like, if you die in the FNAF universe, do you get reborn in ours? And if that's the case, are we going to have to deal with a real William Afton sometime soon? keep an eye on the news, and don't go to Chuck E. Cheese. Finally, in at number 1, preference. Sister Location was the first FNAF game to introduce entirely new animatronics with their own look, and the story is fantastic. But at the end of the game, we get a whole load of robotic parts shoved inside us without our consent, and then we start bruising from the inside until we vomit out the innards and go about our business. Like nothing happened for some reason. They needed a skin suit to blend into the real world and escape the facility, but why us? Sure, we may look like the only person in the place, but just before we get scooped, we see 2 technicians hanging on either side of our office. Why not just take one of them instead? Perhaps because they didn't trust Baby, or they knew how to fight back since, they're technicians, or maybe because they know Mike is also a robot, hence why Baby says he won't die after ejecting themselves from his body. He didn't have organic parts. His insides were an endoskeleton. That's right, I'm back on the train. It's happening. It's gonna be a thing. And at 10, MatPat is canon, kinda. Thanks to the Fazbear Frights book Bunny Call, and more so the story in the flesh, MatPat is basically canon in the FNAF universe. Sure, it's kinda nuts that Scott wrote an MPreg fanfic about MatPat, but the crazier thing is that makes MatPat canon in the FNAF world. Technically, since the character's name isn't Matthew Patrick, and he's working on a new FNAF game and not a new FNAF theory, but he's MatPat's in-universe stand-in. While game theory or Doco may not be canon, the essence of MatPat is, and he ended up getting killed by a plush trap baby that crawled its way out of his stomach. I haven't finished the story, mostly because I keep cringing so hard, but I don't understand how working on a video game turns into an animatronic crawling out of your stomach, killing you instantly. But hey, it's FNAF, and this is yet another instance of someone escaping from a game and entering the real world. However, this time it's Springtrap, which is a version of William Afton, so joy. I guess he will be busting out of the game. And at 9, confirmation. The actual confirmed information we have about the FNAF series is limited. Basically, Scott has only said a few things are true and a few things are false. The rest of these theories about the timeline and the logbook are all based on other theories. Scott hasn't confirmed the name of Crying Child or the name of the Afton family mother. He hasn't even confirmed if William had a wife or if his kids are adopted. He hasn't confirmed if the logbook is possessed or if Michael is the brother. Those are still just theories, not fact. And people treating these theories as fact and hating on things that aren't exactly what MatPat has said is extremely misguided. Yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this. Scott has confirmed that Springtrap is William. He's confirmed that Dream Theory, Foxy being kind, and the phone guy being William Afton or Purple Guy aren't true in the April Fool's mechanics for Fredbear, Foxy, and Phone Guy for Ultimate Custom Night. And he's confirmed that Sister Location takes place in 1983, but not Who Did the Bite of 87. He's also confirmed that Glitch Trap is William Afton using the Easter egg from Curse of Dreadbear, where Glitch Trap dances next to the FNAF 4 house in the distance. An Easter egg I showed off in our recent FNAF VR livestream. So stop coming to the comments of my theories saying that Michael can't possibly be the Crying Child because he's Foxy, bro. I said he was both, not one or the other. It's incredibly disrespectful to the research and effort I put into that video. It's just as valid a theory as anything MatPat suggests. Okay, rant over. Thank you for coming to my Fred talk. And at 8, Phone Guy death. Phone Guy's death from the first FNAF game is ultra sus. Firstly, we hear banging on a closed door, something that only happens because of Foxy. But then we hear Freddy's theme, March of the Toreador. Then some groaning that's only given off by Bonnie and Chica, and then Golden Freddy's jump scare. Why all of this attention? Only on night 5 does it get this intense for the player, and the Phone Guy only has 4 nights, so why did this character come to such a horrific end? And who actually did the killing? We know that the Phone Guy thought he'd get stuffed into a suit, hence why he asked us to check them, or maybe he was planning on hiding in a suit to try to survive, since the main theory in this game is that they put you in a suit because you look like a naked endoskeleton and that's against company policy. But why would Golden Freddy have been the one to kill him? The other animatronics have priority while killing, at least mechanics wise, so why on earth is that happening in that room? Like, what's going on? I don't know. And at 7, Smiling Purple Guy. The first time we see the Purple Guy was in FNAF 2, and in the Foxy Go 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 minigame we see him sitting in the corner smiling. This is the Purple Guy, by the way, not some pink guy. Scott confirmed that in the minigames section of the Freddy Files book. But in that minigame we see the Purple Guy smiling while Foxy runs out to greet 5 dead kids. Why? This originally led us to believe that the Phone Guy was Purple Guy, since Phone Guy also says he loves Foxy and distrusts the puppet. But as I said earlier, this was confirmed not to be the case by Scott himself, so why is the Purple Guy smiling? Is it because William's favorite animatronic was Foxy as well? Or was it because he was happy about the killings, or seeing Foxy's reaction to it, which wouldn't really make sense because these are animatronics, right? Or at this point maybe they were already possessed, which led to the child possessing Foxy to discover the 5 victims, and then maybe that gave William a sense of power, or he liked his reaction. I don't know. And at 6, FNAF Plus. The Fazbear Fanverse Initiative is a program created by Scott Cawthon that gives popular fan game creators the chance to have their games reach a wider audience and be backed by Scott Cawthon himself, helping them with merch, distribution, and console ports in some cases. However, one of the games in this program is FNAF Plus, a reimagining/fan remake of the first game, with new assets, new models, and coding. The trailers make it seem way more intense and scary than the original, and it has a lot of implications for this universe. First off, it's not the same Freddy's we know, but since games like Five Nights at Candy's have connections to the FNAF restaurant, they appear to need to have one to fill that story. So this is kinda pushing them away from the main FNAF canon. But it also has implications with one of the other games, Joy of Creation's Ignited Collection. Since in Joy of Creation you play as Scott Cawthon, or the creator of the FNAF series, who's on the run from the animatronics. Which makes me think that maybe this is the universe that Help Wanted was referring to when they said a rogue indie game dev created games to make fun of the situation. Maybe the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative games are those games, and this is the aftermath of the series ending? Halfway through in at number 5, Multiverse. This also basically canonically inserts a FNAF multiverse into the franchise, which was already the case thanks to the several book series, but also opens the door to various other timelines. Like, what if what we've been seeing isn't one timeline, but multiple? And this means that, technically, every single FNAF theory has been correct in one universe. In one universe, Foam Guy is Purple Guy. In another, Scott Cawthon is the name of the indie game developer. In one universe, I am guaranteed to be right with my theories, but that also means that every single person, no matter how outlandish the theory is, will be right at some point in one of the FNAF universes. And that's pretty cool, but also freaky. What if it's revealed that from FNAF 2 to now, all the games took place in the fanverse, since Freddy from FNAF 2, not Toy Freddy, but like normal Freddy, I guess normal, and the FNAF Plus Freddy look fairly similar. Uh-oh, I can feel the hate comments coming. And at 4, Hanging Scientists. The sister location hanging scientists weren't there before they were revealed to us. It's meant to show us that Ennard is able to and willing to kill anything getting in his way, but that means that there were other people working there while we were there during sister location. I don't know why though, since it was literally filled with deadly animatronics, and the only reason we were sent there was to put her back together like William had somehow asked us to do, but like, why were there others there? Was the business still running? Is that what Chica's Party World was? We know they were renting out animatronics, but why were there so many remaining? I thought they had stopped, especially when they were only used for one day. Like, I mean, we know why Baby wasn't rented, but the others? I don't know. It's weird, but I guess I'm not here to judge how someone runs their business. Getting close to the end in at number 3, 8-bit canon. The 8-bit minigames are very confusing. Shout out to Tessa, one of our editors, for this idea. She edits most of the FNAF videos and apparently they make her want to play the game, so all I have to say is good luck. But she mentioned how weird these minigames are, and up until this point I did really forget about that. Having to glitch through a wall in order to give the spirit of a kid cake so that you can ultimately release all their souls in the real world to get the good ending. Like, what? That means that those 8-bit minigames have to be canon, but also real. Like, how do these games actually present themselves in real life? There's no way that we as Shadow Bonnie are just flying around breaking into pieces, or are they in their own universe and are able to cross over at will? And if we can do the same by playing these, does that mean we're dead as well? Oh wait, sorry, that works too much with my Michael is both Crying Child and Foxy Bro theory, so people are gonna get mad. I'll stop. Hashtag not salty. Not salty at all. And ultimately in at number 2, Forgetting Baby. One of Baby's most famous lines is, "I guess you forgot about me," which she says to William during Ultimate Custom Night. At least from my understanding it's a famous line, or an important one to say the least, since this implies a whole bunch of things right off the bat. Instantly we get confirmation that Elizabeth is William Afton's daughter, since she wouldn't be saying this to a complete stranger. I mean, I guess it was also confirmed that she was his daughter in sister location when Michael said I did it, I put her back together. but like, more confirmation is always good. And as well, this proves that William just ditched his daughter. Sure, he didn't forget about her since he sent Michael to go and put her back together, but he also didn't go see her. He gets burnt in FNAF 6, but until that point he hadn't even been in the same room as his daughter. So she must be pretty pissed, hence why she's one of his enemies while in a coma. This could also mean that he regrets not being able to see her and that he actually does care about her, since these would all be manifestations of William's subconscious, meaning that any theory about William hating his daughter because maybe she killed the mother during childbirth or something similar are confirmed wrong, since he clearly loved her and regrets what happened and how he couldn't see her. Finally, in at number 1, Fazbear Fright's connection. The Fazbear Frights books have been the foundation for a load of FNAF theories as of late, mostly because we aren't getting to see any really new security breach trailers, probably up until the game actually drops at this point, but this ended up causing a lot of division in the community, since most people don't think the books have anything to do with the games, especially in the case of the original novels. However, I'd like to direct your attention to a post made by Scott Cawthon announcing the Fazbear Frights books, where he said that the books will help solve mysteries or issues we've had in the series, so it's 100% allowed to create a theory for the story of the games based on evidence from a Fazbear Frights book. Not only that, but while the games may not be directly connected to the original novels, they are from the same brain as the games, therefore will share similarities, so it's really just ignorant to disregard those as well. I'm gonna get hate for this video anyway, so I might as well say it. Thank you for coming to my Fred Talk number 2. In at 10, Bonnie Goes Missing. Aside from being a great name for a children's book, I'm claiming privileges, Scott, that doesn't really help the fact that after Sister Location, Bonnie just kinda vanished, not including FNAF VR, AR, or Ultimate Custom Night. Ultimate Custom Night since it's a dream, FNAF VR because it's just all the games, and AR since it's not really a game, it's a service, at least in universe. And Bonnie isn't in the main lineup for Security Breach, and instead has a bowling alley with no known appearances otherwise. So, what happened? When Chica was left out of Sister Location, we got Chica's Party World as an excuse, but does Bonnie have the same sort of thing going? Did they swap between the events of Sister Location and Security Breach? Like, what on earth is the deal here? Where did Bonnie go? And at 9, Grandfather Clock. One of the biggest pieces of evidence for Dream Theory was the grandfather clock sound at the end of your shifts in FNAF 1, 2, and 3. Since why would you hear a grandfather clock in an office? Which makes sense, but thanks to Nightmare Freddy's April Fool's Day mechanics, we know that Dream Theory is false. So why are we hearing a grandfather clock? I mean, there very well could be one in the office, but it's not impossible, it's just highly unlikely, but it could also just be that we changed the alarm tone on our phone, and we have an alarm set for 6 AM, so we know the minute that we can get off the job. I can understand that, especially given the horrific environment this job places us in, and no, I'm not talking about the internet, I'm talking about the job in-game, although it does work for both of us. And at 8, layout. Thank you to YouTube user Octoling for the comments on part 9 pointing this one out. In their comment, they pointed out that FNAF 4 and FNAF 2 have very similar layouts, with 2 entrances on the left and right, with a big one in the center. These being the 2 side vents in FNAF 2, and the doors to the hallways in FNAF 4, and the big door in FNAF 2 being the big closet in FNAF 4. Now if this is because the base coding is the same, at least for the office section, or if it's for another reason is unknown, but it's a tiny detail that you don't really think about. So belongs on this list. Does it have bigger lore implications? Maybe, but unlikely. I genuinely think that it's because the code is so similar that he might have just copied and pasted with different textures, and instead of lights that we can activate, we end up running to the doors. But either way, it's something to chew on. And at 7, why did they make the games? We still don't know what games are the ones created by the Scott Cawthon stand-in in the FNAF universe, but we also still don't really know why either. We hear that he made them on his own to capitalize on the tragedies, which makes sense, but then we also have Tape Girl who tells us that Fazbear Entertainment hired this guy to make the games so that people wouldn't be so apprehensive about returning to their restaurants. That had to have been the way things went. Because even we as fans of the series want a real life Freddy Fazbear's, so I'm sure that in universe these games have the same effect, whatever the games may be, which would also explain how they were able to expand, which is why that makes more sense than Scott doing it on his own, at least Scott's in-universe counterpart. Why did you have to do this though, Scott? Like, why must you torture me? I mean, it's incredible, and it's great storytelling, but why? And in 6, Eyes. We all know that Freddy starts moving closer to the end of the original game, and as I've said before, he wasn't really originally meant to move. However, on the cameras, you still don't really see him. It won't be obvious like it is for Bonnie or Chica, but instead you'll see 2 white dots as his eyes. But like, how is this possible? When he does show up at our door, we can see that he has normal animatronic eyes in his sockets like Bonnie and Chica do, so how are there only 2 dots that are really able to be seen? Especially when they're being blocked and no other animatronics do this kind of thing. It's so weird, and I just don't think that it has any like bigger implications, but I still want to know why these white dots come from behind the eyes. Are they that bright? Because those eyes are meant to disperse the light that would normally come from the LEDs, if there are any LEDs behind the eyes, so it's strange in my opinion, and I'll never really be satisfied with the answer, so I'll just move on. Halfway through into number 5, Nightmare Mangle. From what I understand with the Nightmare animatronics, a few got added in a Halloween DLC, but only Nightmare Balloon Boy was canon. I may be wrong about this, and it has been a while since I saw that, but to my understanding, Nightmare Mangle was not canon. We determined this had to be because Crying Child hadn't seen Puppet or Mangle yet, but had seen Balloon Boy. However, we know for a fact that Crying Child has seen Mangle. He appears in his sister's room as a torn up plushie next to her bed. There is no stuffing by her bed, which is ironic given the series, but it's still kinda weird that Mangle wasn't deemed canon if it was there. Shout out to Avery Truesdell for spotting this and putting it in the comments of part 9. So if Crying Child does know what Mangle looks like, how is that not canon? Scott went out of his way to say that Balloon Boy was canon, meaning the others had to not be canon, right? I'm so damn confused. I can't do this anymore. No, I'm only halfway through. And at 4, FNAF IRL. I've made multiple videos about how a real-life Freddy Fazbear's could exist, and may even be coming as early as 2023. But as I was writing this script, I thought, what if we were getting a real-life FNAF crossover? Now, this might be a little outlandish, but bear with me here. We're hoping to get a real-life FNAF in 2023, since that's when Fazbear Frights opens in universe. But it was all speculation and the power of positive thinking. No actual evidence, and Scott even said himself that he wouldn't do it. But are we being set up to think that it's not going to happen, and instead getting one of the most ambitious crossovers of all time? Well, the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative may hold some clues. This is a group of fan game creators that Scott has funded to help make another game. Five Nights at Candy's 4 being the most popular in this group. But this collection of fan games also contains a new version of the Joy of Creation, the Ignited Collection, where if you're not familiar, you play as Scott Cawthon himself being chased by ignited versions of the original animatronics. Basically more withered versions. And since the FNAF multiverse is now a thing thanks to these games and the books, could Scott make this into one of those universes and use that game as a bridge between worlds? It would kind of make sense, but it would also be absolutely terrifying. And at 3, Chris Afton. There are a lot of names for Crying Child, and I'm here to set the record straight. None of them have been confirmed. Crying Child isn't even a canonical name. I'm pretty sure it's just another name for the character because he was always crying, or was mostly crying. It's just another name that we gave him. The names I've been seeing recently are Chris, Norman, Evan, and Kyle, and I don't know where most of these came from. Evan comes from the security logbook, and most people seem to think that this is canon, but it's not. They've also had to really struggle to get the N as far as I could tell, so if you want to believe that, currently their name is Eve. Chris is random, and I'm pretty sure came from a FNAF-themed music video. Same thing with that car accident that apparently killed the mother. They're not actually canon. Norman isn't anywhere to be found either, and the same thing with Kyle, because I made that one up. But I'm certain that there will be at least one person who, when I said that, yelled, "Finally!" or something along those lines. Crying Child does not have a name. It's not a tiny detail, but it's something that a lot of people don't really think about. So if you have a detail but put it in the comments with a name that isn't confirmed, it could be about anyone, so I really tend to scroll past those. But I had to set the record straight, okay? No canon name for Crying Child. If you want to call him whatever, it's fine, but don't use it as evidence or say that it's confirmed or canon, because it's not. However, if they have solidly found evidence for all of the letters of Evan, please send the link to me on Instagram so I can like start looking around, like so I can actually see that. But until that point, it's not confirmed. It's even not confirmed after I see it. It's not like I'm the one confirming it, but you know what I mean. And at 2, passive mode. Shout out to Robert Vasvensky for posting this in the comments of part 9 as well. This really helped me. Why is it that out of the 2 shadow animatronics in FNAF 2, there's one that's passive and one that's aggressive? And why is Bonnie the aggressive one? Shadow Freddy's just chilling, slumped over, not really moving. But Shadow Bonnie will just come in and absolutely torment the hell out of you by flipping flickering your lights and just overall being a tool. But why does this theme remain even after this game, with Shadow Bonnie being aggressive in FNAF AR as well? Is it just the spirits creating these figures that have different personalities, or is it a different emotion that created these A to begin with, or B, making one more aggressive than the other? I don't know, but it's hella interesting, because like, if agony caused Shadow Bonnie, but a different emotion caused Shadow Freddy, it would explain why Shadow Freddy is passive. Finally, in at number 1, Oblivious. In a previous video, multiple videos in fact, I've said that the company doesn't care because they're sending and replicating the suit of the dude who caused them to have a bad rap in the first place in FNAF Special Delivery. They're replicating Springtrap and they're just sending him on his way, going like, yeah, go kill more kids. However, a commenter pointed out to me that when discussing Springtrap in the AR emails, they refer to Springtrap as an older Bonnie model, which I find confusing because, well, how do you know it's an older Bonnie model, but then you call it Springtrap in the app? I know that it's because we know him as Springtrap and that's like our universe reason, but assuming we were in the FNAF universe, we would be using the app that at least looks similar to the one that we use, if not the exact same, minus the whole animatronic fight sequences, because those would be happening in real life. And if Springtrap is listed as Springtrap and not older Bonnie, Fazbear Entertainment needs to explain. Fazbear, explain! What do you mean it's Arkansas? But also, why would you not recall the animatronics and just go get them? Or have somewhere people can deposit them? Or company-wide shutdown switch? You should have thought of that by now, especially after how many things have gone wrong. And it's 10 the Bite of 87. The Bite of 87 is one of the biggest contention points in the whole FNAF series. It makes some theories, breaks others, and has been debated since the very first game when we learned about this very mysterious incident. However, we've never really been able to determine who caused the bite. It's typically thought to be Jeremy who got bit, but who did the biting? Some think Mangle, others think Fredbear, and some think Toy Chica. And some think Chica thanks to Ultimate Custom Night, which honestly just outright tells us who caused the bite if you listen to Toy Chica's death lines. One of which being, "Where's my beak?" Lodged in your forehead, of course.
Where's my beak? Lodged in your forehead, of course.
Which is where the frontal lobe is located, which is the part of the brain removed in the Bite of 87. This could also allude to Scott's clue on MatPat's FNAF livestream that said, why would Toy Chica be missing her beak? And it would be because she caused the Bite of 87, and without the beak, she couldn't hurt anyone else. Like how I keep saying my pug can't really hurt anyone because he can't fit his flat mouth around you unless you willingly like give him a finger or something. I don't know why he scares people. And the 9 Scrap Trap. What the hell happened to Springtrap between games to cause such warps? Sure, he was burnt in FNAF 3, but we've seen him alive and well and not damaged in Sister Location's Night 7 ending cutscene, so where did all this additional damage and warping come from? The head becomes larger and so do the feet. I genuinely don't know how this would make sense. We know they're the same person thanks to Ultimate Custom Night's voice lines, but I'm so confused as to what could have happened. I'm sure the extra damage comes from fending off wild animals, since you know, he's a body that would attract scavengers, but how did the head of the suit get bigger? It's not like it evolved. My only guess is that William either broke into some Fazbear warehouse, like the one he visits in the Man in Room 1280, or he made a new one to try to protect him better, since we see extensive damage, and I don't really know how much time there is between Sister Location and Pizzeria Simulator, so like, he could have been out there for a while. And it ate Ballora. FNAF Ultimate Custom Night really has a lot of lore hints and clues for us, so it will be appearing a lot on this list and in other lists in the future, I'm sure. I'm just now starting to understand the importance of this game for all of FNAF lore. One of these clues, however, is one of Ballora's death lines from Ultimate Custom Night. After killing you, Ballora will on occasion say, "These are strange circumstances that have brought us together."
These are strange circumstances that have brought us together.
And I'm sorry, but based on her other lines, I don't think she's just talking about how they're in hell or in purgatory. I think that this is about how they met. Well, how William and the woman that Ballora represents met. In a previous video, I theorized that maybe Vlad and Clara from Immortal and the Restless perhaps represent William and Henry's wife, a scandalous affair that drove him into killing Charlotte so that he could be with her, since she would have no ties to Henry anymore. But I wasn't sure of it. But honestly, those would be strange circumstances that could have brought them together. I mean, maybe he didn't kill Charlotte to be with her, but killing Charlotte drove her away from Henry into the arms of another man. Williams, perhaps. I mean, she asks, why do you hide inside your walls? Maybe she's talking to Henry and not William. And it's 7 Stranger Danger. Ultimate Custom Night has some funny lines and moments. Comedy gold in the form of Mr. Hippo's death lines, or rather speeches about Lemonade, and Happy Frog and her ninja skills. However, one of the most iconic and funny lines has to come from Ned Bear. I don't know why these animatronics go so hard in this game, but whatever. Not only does he joke about being killed by obscure secondary characters, but he also just yells stranger danger.
Stranger danger!
I think it's funny and a nice detail because, well, that's the one line that could have saved countless lives. But instead, the kids followed Golden Bonnie to the back room for more pizza, and instead of getting stuffed crust, they got stuffed into a suit. Literally, stranger danger would have saved their little lives, but they didn't listen to their parents. It's a shame, really, and it's kind of nuts of me to think that this is funny, but I mean, it is. Ned Bear is the only one thinking straight in this world, and I am here for it. I stan Ned Bear. Ned's Declassified Pizzeria Survival Guide. Scott, get the rights and make it a thing. And at 6, the one you should not have added. Scott has added a whole load of characters into the series, so much so that there are too many characters for my taste in Ultimate Custom Night. But some of the characters he's added are a little too familiar for him, and it could have lore implications that we don't know about yet. Firstly, Scott added himself into FNAF lore. Sure, it's not him, it's not Scott Cawthon, but he is the face of the indie game developer that made some games about the tragedies in the FNAF world. He used a picture of himself when he could have used anyone, hell, a stock photo, or even nobody. Then we have Cassidy, the one you should not have killed. This one is Scott's son, as confirmed by Scott himself in either a Reddit or Steam post, I don't quite remember which, meaning that Scott's son, in universe, is dead. Yikes. And he also added the rest of his family, just subtly, since all the FNAF 4 pictures of family or kids that are visible in the hallways are of his family, since you didn't have to pay for any stock images or anything, as confirmed by Scott in the same post I referred to earlier, addressing the one you should not have killed. The one you should not have added, since now they're technically dead. Get it now? Halfway through number 5, final moments. Something seems off to me about this game. Why would William be tortured in hell by a version of himself? That version of course being Scrap Trap. And I think it's an issue that multiple people have, and why the whole mic trap thing is so popular. Well, this is probably William's life just flashing before his eyes. Every animatronic in this game William has had something to do with. He was there in FNAF 6, he was Scrap Trap, he created the animatronics and the sister location animatronics, he caused the nightmare animatronics to be created in the mind of Crying Child. This is basically his whole life flashing before his eyes, but not in order, all at once. Torturing him for his misdeeds and the horrible things he's done. Maybe he regrets it and that's why he shows up as well. Or maybe he only regrets losing his children. Hence why all his version says is I always come back, since he hopes his children could do the same, or wishes they could. And at 4, Wake Up. Nightmarion, or Nightmarionette, whatever you want to call it, is one of the scariest animatronics there is. Added in the Halloween DLC for FNAF 4, Scott deemed him not canon, but he's still here in Ultimate Custom Night, saying I am the dark reflection of what you have created.
I am the fearful reflection of what you have created.
The puppet, since William killed Charlotte, who ended up possessing it. But that's not the line I wanted to focus on, we knew that already. What I wanted to acknowledge was the line, "This is a nightmare you won't wake from."
This is a nightmare that you won't wake from.
This is a subtle way of saying that someone woke up from the nightmare before. Like someone may have woken up before, but this is a nightmare you won't wake from. Who would have woken up, you ask? Who else was the only other person to see the nightmare animatronics? Crying Child. Oh wait, same thing. This line also helps prove my point. Crying Child somehow survived or was saved from death, like Nightmare also seems to hint towards, but we heard a flat line at the end of FNAF 4. That's because he was removed from the machine, not because he had died. I'm telling you, it's a thing. Getting close to the end into number 3, FNAF Multiverse. The FNAF Multiverse is already a thing. The original novels are their own universe, despite sharing characters and plot points. The Fazbear Frights books are their own universe, even though they help answer other questions that we've had, like Scott said himself when he announced the original 5, and the games are their own universe. But what if the games themselves are multiple universes? There are so many points that conflict with themselves when trying to establish a timeline. Map had decided to put emphasis on the events that were mentioned later in the timeline, but what if they conflict because they're not the same Earth? I mean, we have the FNAF game multiverse thanks to the Fazbear Fanverse initiative Scott started, funding some installments in new fan games and helping them with marketing, retail, and merch. So why not have the games or the events of the games that don't help the timeline take place in another universe? I mean, it would screw up a load of stuff, but it could help explain a load of stuff too. He didn't start a fanverse for no reason. There has to be some sort of tie-in. Penultimate lead in number 2, burning. Look, I'm all for setting the souls of the damned free of their chains and letting them move on, but we need to remember the souls that we're dealing with in this series. They're typically kids, right? But doesn't it feel weird knowing what happens when you think of it like that? Sure, we set the kids free in FNAF 3, but we know the Remnant can only be destroyed with fire, and since the kids are still here thanks to the Remnant, we have to burn Fazbear Frights down, causing the fire at the end of the game, but also causing the souls of the victims to be set free. We're burning the kids on the regular in this series. And in FNAF 6 we burn a load of them thanks to Molten Freddy, who's entered, so he has multiple different souls. And the only one who wasn't a kid, William, managed to escape and got sent to the hospital where he would be taken to a Fazbear warehouse so he could possess a hard drive and come back to life again. It's nuts, man. I don't understand why so many kids have to suffer in this series. Scott must not be good with discipline. Or he uses what happens in these games as discipline. Attaboy, Scott. Strike fear into their hearts. That's what my dad did. Finally, in at number 1, the real protagonist. Orville the Elephant in Ultimate Custom Night is one of the animatronics that's really memeable. Not as memeable as his counterparts perhaps, but he does give us a lot of information if you're paying attention. Take this one line from Ultimate Custom Night for example. He tried to release you, he tried to release us, but I won't let that happen. I will keep you here, I will hold you here, no matter how many times they burn us.
He tried to release you. He tried to release us. But I'm not gonna let that happen. I will hold you here. I will keep you here. No matter how many times they burn us.
Hold on a second. If this is really the voice of Cassidy, Golden Freddy, speaking through the elephant, then why would they say he tried to release you? He tried to release us. Henry was the one who tried to release William in FNAF 6, we know this from his end speech, and we know that's the one that Cassidy is referring to since they said I won't let that happen, which is why they're doing it at that exact moment, but we thought that Michael was the one who released the spirits of the kids in FNAF 3, which is where Golden Freddy has their happiest day. Could it be that we've been playing as Henry this whole time with the exception of Sister Location? I mean, we didn't release any souls in Sister Location. That would mean Henry is Mike Schmidt, and that the Mike who owned the logbook would be Henry, and that we'd be reading it as Michael Afton? This may deserve its own video. Holy crap, this could change everything. In a 10th, Glamrock Chica. While YouTuber Daka was doing a live stream for charity, when they would hit certain donation goals, they would unlock a new security breach teaser. One of the final ones was a picture of Glamrock Chica smashed in an alley or a jump lot of some kind, which first of all is very reminiscent of the scrapped animatronics from FNAF 6, but ignore that. There is one distinct detail that everyone noticed, but nobody seemed to really question further than why. And that detail being Chica is missing her beak. But not only did the same thing happen to Toy Chica in FNAF 2, but they also share the same body shape. Originally, Toy Chica lost her beak to make her scarier, and somehow Scott made it seem like it had bigger implications in the livestream from MatPat during the FNAF 4 days. Maybe it's because this was coming, or he wanted to make it seem bigger than it was. Or maybe Dream Theory was right for a time, but it isn't anymore. I don't know, I just figured it was an interesting detail that we should keep an eye on. Maybe how she loses her beak will be a big help in solving earlier problems. Or maybe there's something else in this image that I'm missing. I don't know. In at 9, fanfiction. We know there are plenty of FNAF fanfictions, probably too many if I'm honest. The ones we've talked about here are creepypastas, but I guess in a way it's sort of theories. However, have we ever stopped to consider any in-universe FNAF fanfiction? Or, well, at least, I guess, Freddy Fazbear fanfiction? Whether it be about the games that are in-universe or the characters themselves. Believe it or not, there is in fact Chuck E. Cheese fanfiction, so it is possible. But what would these fanfictions be? What about this Silver Eyes or Fazbear Frights? The novel isn't fully connected to the games, only sharing some similar aspects and characters, right? That's what fanfiction is. And Scott wasn't the only one who wrote these books. He had help. The Silver Eyes was also written by Kiara Breed Risley as well. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name. If I did, I apologize. And Fazbear Frights had help from Ellie Cooper and Andrea Wagner. So technically, since they're not Scott Cawthon, it's just fanfiction that is considered canon. Huh. Gives you a lot to think about, huh? So go ahead, write your fan fiction. Just make sure that it isn't nasty. And don't ship dead kids with their killer or their dead sibling, okay? I can't believe that that's a thing. And it ate Power Hands. I don't think I've mentioned this before in this series, but I noticed something that most people seem to ignore while discussing the ending to FNAF VR. Most people assume that we swapped places with Glitchtrap, that he takes over our body in the final fight. But if when you get onto the stage after he swaps, you can see your hands and headset are missing if you look back to the desk you were at. Your holographic hands are nowhere to be seen. Yes, your controllers are controlling the Glitchtrap suit hands, but if you're really swapped, you would see holographic hands at that spot, most likely waving and taking off the headset. So why aren't they there? Because we don't swap places with Glitchtrap, we merge with him. I think that this is fairly common knowledge by now, but when MatPat first released his video and said Glitchtrap escapes this game through us, nobody seemed to notice that, and he in fact didn't. So there you go. You should have heard it here first, but you weren't subscribed, so don't worry, it's okay. Speaking of that, if you're enjoying the video, why don't you hit that like button? It really helps us out and lets us know what you want to see more of, and while you're doing it, just click subscribe. We're so close to 500,000 subscribers, and we know you love FNAFs, so we're still making FNAF. And it's having a special delivery. Special delivery is a weird game, and while I do mean the gameplay aspects like collecting Remnant, in this case I really mean in a timeline sense, since we know it takes place between Help Wanted and Security Breach, but what is the canonicity of this game? Are they actually trying to rebuild their image by sending out animatronics that were supposed to be friendly, or are they intentionally scaring people, and do the customers know if they're going to be scared, like a mail order killer service? Or do they expect an animatronic helper for around the house? And what is with sending out versions of the killer that ruined the reputation of the company in the first place? Like, is it a joke? Is it intentional? Do they know that was the housing for William after they thought he disappeared? Or is this all just fake? One of the games that we know within the universe. Are these animatronics really getting sent to your house, or are we as the player experiencing the same thing someone in universe would experience, like through their phone, an AR game? Like, what is actually going on in this game? And at 6, symmetry. FNAF VR has some interesting story elements that I'd like to point out to you. This was the basis for a personal theory I had a long time ago, where I thought that in FNAF VR, we played as a man named Gabriel who was playtesting the game, since at the end we ended up getting stuffed into Freddy. However, there were other details that drove me to this conclusion, like for example, the fact that Glitchtrap causes Jeremy, a name that we know all too well in this series, to cut his face off, and then Bonnie shows up in the final room in the Pizza Party minigame, missing his face. And that Chica starts off without her arm in the Parts and Service minigame and shows up without the same arm in the final room as well. However, symmetry like this is everywhere in the FNAF series as a whole and not just in this game. Like how William would stuff his victims into the suits and then got stuck in one himself, etc. It's interesting and something I'm sure we'll see more of, so keep your eye out. Halfway through into number 5, history. Is FNAF history repeating itself? It's an interesting question that we should probably discuss, since it seems like it might be. This idea started when I thought about how both dummy-thick versions of Chica lose their beaks, and it escalated from there. Because it seems like William is taking the lives of his original victims again, well, at least by name. Granted, we don't know Tape Girl's name, and it could be Vanny, and we don't know who our character plays in, we don't know who our character's name is in FNAF VR, and that could also be Vanny, but technically Vanessa, you know what I mean. Because as Glitchtrap, William has already taken the life of Jeremy, someone we know to be the one who possessed Bonnie based on the FNAF 3 ending, as well as the gravestone screen from FNAF 6. He made Jeremy cut his face off, like how Bonnie at the end of the Pizza Party minigame in the final room is missing his face. We don't know what became of Tape Girl, but she could very well be represented by Chica as well. Someone we thought was okay, but then turned out to be incomplete, ergo the missing arm. Not in possession of all her marbles, should I say, as the final tape seems to indicate. It's interesting, and maybe Gregory in Security Breach will end up being the next crying child, but hopefully not Napkin Kid, because Christ, would that be annoying. In at 4, fake. Much like any YouTube video prank, what if everything in this world is fake? The story, the death, the in-universe minigames, the animatronics and special delivery, Help Wanted. what if it was all fake and just meant to be a massive marketing stunt that went entirely wrong? Or hell, maybe it went horribly right. If Freddy Fazbear's was dying, much like how Chuck E. Cheese was failing, could it possibly be that Fredbear's was too? And in an effort to keep the business alive, William and Henry created a marketing scheme that would get them some publicity and even bring in some more customers that were fans of horror. I mean, it would explain why William was never convicted and why the investigation was so flawed. They didn't actually check the suits because there was, in reality, no bodies inside them. They never leaked blood or mucus or smelled terrible. Why would anyone go if they did? Or stick around when they saw it, or hell, even smelt it? It also explains how, even through all this horror, they were able to expand, eventually opening an entire mall that they called a Pizzaplex. Oh man, am I onto something here? In a 3 Gotchaverse. Unfortunately, in the FNAF canon, there are now multiple timelines and multiple dimensions thanks to the confirmation of the Fazbear Fanverse initiative. However, that basically means any fan fiction about FNAF is true in one form or another, and any theory about FNAF is correct in one universe, which unfortunately means that there is an entire canon version of the FNAF Gotcha fandom. Don't get me wrong, it's cringy and it really shouldn't exist, but technically it's canon in another Earth. I don't know what to do with this information. It just kind of makes me sad, honestly. And to Oswald. It may have come across as a joke when I said it in the last part, and how I mentioned that FNAF has its own Barry Allen that's going around messing up the timeline. But you know what? It wasn't. Not anymore, at least. Scott has stated before that the Fazbear Frights books are meant to help us solve bits of confusion in the main FNAF canon, like how William was able to survive being spring-locked and whatnot. But I believe that Scott has given us the biggest answer already in the very first story of the series. Into the Pit is the title of the first story and the first Fazbear Frights book, and is centered around Oswald, a kid who loves to draw but has recently been focusing on furry animals with robots inside. Eventually, he finds a ball pit that sends him through time into the past, where eventually he sees 6 murders and flees back to his time. But he does survive until the end of the story, which is kind of rare for these Fazbear Frights books. I think that it was on purpose. There are a lot of things that contradict themselves in this story, with statements from different characters changing the timeline and making it so damn difficult to navigate. Plus, now we have multiple dimensions to think about with the Fazbear Fanverse initiative and the book series worlds. But what if the reason the timeline is so clunky is because Oswald is changing it? There isn't much of a connection to the games for these first couple stories, but looking at it like this has it make a lot more sense and explains all the changes. It's like Flashpoint. Barry knew what was different because he was outside of the timeline change. We're outside this timeline too, and that's why we see the mistakes. This genuinely seems like the only explanation to me. I mean, I know it's highly unlikely, but I mean, what other explanation could there be? Finally, in at number 1, skins. FNAF AR doesn't only have a confusing story, it also has confusing mechanics. Like, for example, if everything is supposed to be real, where are all these skins coming from? And how is it possible? And to that, I think I have a solution. If these skins are meant to be real, because why wouldn't they be? If we can see them, they must be real, right? I think that there is a simple explanation that solves this issue that I've been having for a while. The illusion discs from the Twisted Ones novel that we also see in Sister Location. These, as we know, can easily manipulate the appearance of anything nearby, at least in the minds of individuals close enough to the discs themselves. And this is the most likely scenario to explain how we can change the skins of these animatronics basically at will. It just sets the disc to emit the proper sound, or however it changes the looks of these things. Right frequency, I guess? Which is honestly kinda cool. It would also be cool if we had this in real life so I could change my appearance whenever I wanted, but like just my clothing. You don't want to get rid of the moneymaker right here. Imagine just like changing skins at will like you can in Minecraft or Fortnite. Like, it would be fun, but like it would just be clothes. So you can just be like, haha, I'm wearing a banana. Haha, I'm a burrito. Haha, I'm a glizzy gobbler. In a 10th FNAF world, hell. FNAF World is a game I'm sure we'd all like to forget. However, what I'm seeing again and again is the importance of this game from a lore standpoint, both from the Helpy Facts lists as well as this one. From the Helpy Facts list, Helpy looks very similar to the style of the characters from FNAF World, and I propose that he could be a crossover character, linking the two games together in an unexpected way as an example of how you can escape a game world. But now I've seen that the characters of Tangle, White Rabbit, and Bounce Pot can all appear in Ultimate Custom Night, in motion using their battle animations. This not not only links the game to the main FNAF canon, but also shows that William's idea of entering a video game and escaping from one came from FNAF World, a game that revolves around a game affecting the real world. And at 9, Nightmare. One thing that was mentioned when we first saw it, but more so forgotten, is the complexity of the security logbook. It messed with everything we knew about the series, but then messed with everything we thought we knew about the logbook itself. One of the key things that sticks out to me is the fact that Mike drew Nightmare on page 41. Those were just an illusion, which we know thanks to the Ultimate Custom Night's death voice lines from characters like Nightmare Freddy, who said this time there is more than an illusion to fear, and I am given flesh to be your tormentor. So, how could Mike know what Nightmare looks like? Crying Child was in a coma while he was seeing them, so he couldn't have described them, especially in that much detail. Where'd he get it from? And it ain't blood on the cover. The security logbook is a real point of contention for the series. Whatever, I'm not talking about what's inside the book content-wise. I'm talking about how there are literal pages covered or splattered with blood, and the restaurant just gave it to you as if nothing was wrong. What the hell happened to cause blood to get all over this thing? And thanks to the finish on the blood on the cover, at least the hardcover version, it's shiny, meaning it must be new. And I'm prone to nosebleeds, but I know that that is not a nosebleed. You don't lose that much blood. Well, unless you're me, but that's because I have veins that poke out of my nose, okay? I had to get the cauterized in elementary school, which means I had to get like 20 small burns on my nose in each side, okay? It was a mess. But not even that would generate this much blood. So why is it covered in blood? We see coffee stains, that makes sense, but blood? And why are they only mentioning that someone else wrote in the book, not bled all over it? That's not sanitary. And at 7, payoff. There has been a lot of crap that goes down in these restaurants. Missing kids, murder, animatronics that they felt needed access to a crime database to scan everyone that comes into the restaurant that ended up failing. But even after all of this, no lawsuits or anything? We saw papers talking about the missing children's incident, but nothing about lawsuits. The company shut down to downsize, but we've seen no evidence of a lawsuit or arrests. Sure, they had an investigation, but not a good one when there was obvious dead body stench coming from the animatronics. I don't care how sweaty and gross these kids and this pizza is, nothing would make it smell that bad normally. This to me indicates some form of a payoff at the very least, like maybe William has the police in his pocket, or a deal with someone saying that if he finds the key to living forever, that he shares it and he gets away. There has to be something more here. If I was a parent, I wouldn't stop until my kid had found justice. Like, where did these 15 kids' parents go? And at 6, performance. It has been stated before that the voice actor for William Afton, PJ Hayward, based his performance for the character off of Anthony Hopkins' version of Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, who, if you didn't know, is a cold-blooded cannibal serial killer in the movie. So bad that he's behind a full glass wall instead of bars, so he won't bite your face off. What if this is for more reasons than just being creepy? I mean, no body, no crime, right? If William was eating the kids his robots were trapping, it could cause them enough agony to create more remnant, and more remnant means more studying for the mad scientist, and one step closer to the answer to immortality. He didn't take killing kids off the table, something that most people in prison will even kill you for if that's why you're thrown in the slammer, so eating them isn't really too much of a stretch for this guy. Maybe it started off with him thinking that that's how he was going to get the answer. I mean, he originally stuffed them into the stomachs of the animatronics, right? Halfway through number 5, exotic butters. The security logbook is really appearing a lot in this video, and that's because in the hype for Security Breach, we've forgotten all about the that is this book. Not only does Mike draw Nightmare in the book, a representation of Crying Child's death, he also draws things connecting him to other games, like exotic butters and baskets of money from Sister Location, or a gravestone seemingly similar to the ones from FNAF 6's gravestone ending, or the casual bongos from Sister Location, and a Freddy Fazbear logo with blood surrounding Freddy's mouth, like how Crying Child got chomped, or spooky animatronics and ghost sheets, which could be a reference to the missing children's incident from the first game, since FNAF VR's Curse of Dreadbear DLC wasn't out yet. And this is ironically on the same page as the maze, like the corn maze from that game. And why is there a picture of mangled up Chica on the very last page of this book? So many damn questions that we just forgot about thanks to the new game. It's exactly what he wanted. And at 4, Nightmare voice line. In Ultimate Custom Night, you can fight off Nightmare, and his voice lines when he kills you can really prove what we've all been thinking. Well, most of us. Or some of us. I don't really know the ratio to Wilhelm versus Micatory believers in the comments. Nightmare's voice lines include, "You will not be spared, you will not be saved," indicating that someone has been spared or saved before. But from what? Well, this next line tells us, "I am your wickedness made of flesh." And who out of Mike and William is wicked? William, the killer of the series. His wickedness is killing, therefore Nightmare would be William's desire to kill personified. He also says the shadow fears me, and until this point I didn't know if he meant death or William himself. However, I think that this proves he means William, since the purple guy is the shadow of a man. William either fears his own desire to kill, or he fears the fact that it took his children from him, both Elizabeth and Crying Child. And to further prove this is William, Nightmare says, I am here to claim what is left of you, since he was burnt to a crisp in FNAF 6's fire. So there isn't really much left, just like how his wickedness came to claim Crying Child. And at 3, debunked. On April 1st of the year or the year after it was released, Scott added Nightmare Freddy, Foxy, and Phone Guide to Ultimate Custom Night. Each of their mechanics was based on a debunked FNAF theory. Most interestingly, Nightmare Freddy's mechanics were based off of Dream Theory, proving that these games are actually happening and it's not a dream. Which makes everything more complicated because now, God, we have to figure this out properly. And it can't just go around saying it was all a dream. Anyway, the Dream Theory along with Foxy being helpful and the Phone Guy being Purple Guy were all confirmed 100% false at this point, resulting in a whole lot more issues for the series because I can't just say that it was all a dream. Even if I wasn't doing it before, now I can't do it ever. Only FNAF 4 was a dream. It was like a coma dream. Great. And at 2, hallucinations. Some believe that there are 2 spirits possessing the security logbook, and that one of them is Crying Child. But I believe that these altered texts aren't another spirit, since it wouldn't make much sense for the 2 spirits to communicate in different ways, one using faded text and the other one altering what was already in the book, which seems very difficult to me. I believe that these are hallucinations that we're seeing from Mike's perspective. He writes in the book in red ink, and that's established early on. But by the end of the book, Mike is incredibly tired and stressed, as indicated by the incident logs on page 108. Something happened at 8:11, but we don't know if it was AM or PM. Considering how we don't start our shift in game until late, we can assume AM. However, we wouldn't get to work at exactly 12. He'd be there beforehand. And if he was having to fight off animatronics all night, he would certainly be stressed. Stress and fatigue would certainly cause hallucinations, and even if we aren't seeing this from Mike's perspective, we would be seeing it from ours. Maybe this is where Michael got the idea to use the name Mike in the first game. Maybe by reading this, we are Michael Afton learning about who we are. This could be where we get the idea to go to Sister Location, or it could be just before our father contacts us to go do so. Finally, in at number 1, death by Afton. So many people in the series die because of William Afton. Obviously, he's the killer, the catalyst, the one who started it all. However, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Well, at least when she's possessed a robot. Remember FNAF World's original ending, the introduction of Baby? Well, she ended up killing Henry, the man who's sitting at the desk. We know this is Henry because, well, he says he made Baby and can't deactivate her, but he ended up getting killed. William wasn't dead at this point, and Henry was the only other one who could have helped in the creation of Baby. He did so not knowing what William was planning, I'm sure, but then Baby kills him. Now, Circus Baby's Pizza World was shut down after 1 day because of what it did to Elizabeth, so this would most likely take place after that, meaning that Elizabeth was inside Baby when she killed Henry. Elizabeth Afton, the sweet little girl who got too close to Baby, took Henry's life. It's kind of poetic when you think about it. Henry's daughter was taken by William, and Henry was taken by William's daughter.